Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for tuning in to our Manufacturing Technology Summit. This next hour, we're going to take a little journey down the automation world, particularly for SOLIDWORks. The next hour is all about what the ins and outs of using DriveWorks are to configure and automate your designs. Again, my name is Joel. I'm TPM's Director of Technical Solutions. If you have any desire for follow-up or more conversation on what DriveWorks can do for your business, please shoot me an email, ping us in the Q&A. And so if you work in manufacturing and your company makes what you consider a configurable product, and you've got a variety of business systems, you're probably familiar with all the joy that comes along with that trifecta, right? It's a pretty challenging business setting to operate in and operate in well. So let's just a quick review of kind of what the legacy approaches have been to managing this kind of complexity. Folks who are from the engineering realm know that there are some options within CAD and specifically within SOLIDWORks. If you have one day you have one job and then the next day you have another job that's similar but different, you might do something like copy and paste or pack and go of a file set, and then tune up the pasted file set, or you might have heavy use of configurations and design tables or variables or even in context modeling. These are all inbuilt tools that take some collectively small steps towards producing something of a configurable environment. But as you've probably found over the years, they are limited. They're not intended to be actual automation solutions. And then there's Excel. We've seen customers will show us their design table files or other Excel files that they use to kind of attempt to manage an order process or a design process or some sort of otherwise capture a specification of a product. And if it's the tool that you have, then that's what you make do with. But I think you've all seen your share of Excel files that get pretty hefty, pretty contorted, and really at the end of the day just don't kind of get the job done. Then there's the old tribal knowledge solution, which really isn't a solution at all. It's just relying on folks in the business just kind of knowing what to do, right? And you can't really automate that. You just simply possess it kind of in the ether, and the business carries on kind of with some amount of fragility. Kind of next level option as far from a technology standpoint is any kind of ERP or ERP centric configurator. We'll talk a little bit about more of those in a few minutes, but there are ERP options out there that might be like a module or bolt-on or add-on piece of functionality that attempts to give you some amount of applying or instituting like variations of product. To call them configurators can be an overstatement. And then there's all things custom programming, which the world's your oyster if you know how to program, or you're willing to outsource that effort to a third party. So when we take a look, we survey these legacy solutions, they tend to share some pretty brutal characteristics. They are all inadvertently somehow very manual, very tedious. They can be very rooted in a paper-based process or a document-based process, and ultimately rely on things like emailing attachments or otherwise just sort of communicating in a way that isn't intrinsically efficient or safe. Furthermore, very few solutions out there actually feature a connection between the configuration and the actual CAD package, right? So there's typically a missing link right there. That's a critical link for making the business run well. And then finally, what this will all kind of prove to be about is data, right? And we just see with kind of the hodgepodge approach to attempting automation, we're not really valuing data. It's critical, right? And when it's in a good and positive place, you can start to do really amazing things in the business. So your data has to be robust, responsive, accessible, secure, all that stuff. Okay, so there's looking at software exclusively to tackle this problem. Again, there's ERP systems, you have standalone configurators. If you're to Google search product configurator as a phrase, you will get countless options, right? There's untold number of like standalone configurator products that, range in allowing you to, have different colors, different sizes, different, maybe slightly different versions. But if you have a truly configurable product that has some level of sophistication, those fall pretty short. And of course, there's the custom programming route, which, while might be the ultimate in flexibility, really kind of forces a business to put all that intellectual, not just property, but know-how into a third party's hands. It kind of locks it away and makes it inaccessible to most people. And so that's why we're talking about DriveWorks, because DriveWorks tackles each of those characteristics like head on and sort of turns the whole environment on its head. Okay, so as we're going to see, DriveWorks is the ultimate in CAD automation. I think you'll be surprised to what depth and level, sophistication and flexibility you can actually automate with DriveWorks. DriveWorks is it can be used on a local install, which is what we'll see in a demo in a few minutes, but it's also online enabled, and it's highly integration friendly. Everything about what you're going to see in the demo is 100% customized. It was made by the client to suit their own needs, right? This is not an out-of-the-box thing that they kind of had to squeeze themselves into. They built it around themselves. All of this without any custom code. DriveWorks is a no-code environment that has a great potential to be a do-it-yourself type solution that really enables you to own your own destiny over the long haul. Okay, so just a quick review of what DriveWorks is before we dive into the demo. I think what you're going to see is it's a pretty robust and comprehensive solution, and you're going to see a lot more than maybe you thought you would when you came to this presentation. So we have this concept of 3 pillars of DriveWorks to try and take that wide breadth of functionality and distill it down to kind of 3 main functional areas. Okay, and first and foremost, as you've heard, design automation or CAD automation in SOLIDWORks. Okay, DriveWorks is a gold partner of SOLIDWORks, and in short, they have taken the open SOLIDWORks API, which anyone has access to so long as you can code. They've taken that API and developed a very user-friendly kind of drag and drop WYSIWYG way of interacting with the API that folks like probably yourself, myself, just sort of engineers by background, not programmers, that enables us to fully engage with that API. Okay. Building on top of the concept of automating your CAD work is also just automating the configuration process as a whole. Now, this tends to be in an environment that would be maybe sales or your end user, or you might put a configurator out to distribution, or it could even just serve an in-house team of designers or engineers, right? Whatever it is, it's translating all things about your design into terms that any user could understand, right? Also putting it online, with attractive graphics and a nice user experience and interface and all the things that come with that, like you would expect to have a modern website. So DriveWorks, this configurator solution, ties all that together. Both of those 2 pillars are built on top of the fact that there's this everything else pillar, right? Which is, in a nutshell, DriveWorks being a very comprehensive and capable piece of middleware that is a very, like I said before, very integration friendly, and as a result can sit in between all of your other business systems, right? So CRM, that's probably where your customer data should live. Your ERP, that's probably where information about parts and pricing and lead times and all that type of data should live. PDM is the system that makes sure all your documents are safe and sound and in good working order. So let all these other business systems do what they're good at their core, and let's put DriveWorks in the middle to kind of orchestrate the whole affair. One other system that DriveWorks integrates with, of course, is SOLIDWORks. And so just imagine if you're at the very core of your business is your design data, weights, custom properties, dimensions, material types, how many holes, diameters of holes, all that stuff, all this rich data that is going to be needed by various people throughout the business for different reasons. That data is just super important to you. The key thing that DriveWorks will integrate with is that SOLIDWORks, so that we can push that data throughout as you see fit. Okay, just a quick review of, well, stepping back to that first pillar of CAD automation. We're going to break this down into three basic kind of areas of thought and consideration. Okay, first is design intent. Okay, if you're like a lot of businesses that we work with, when we get started with DriveWorks, you might not be super organized. You might have a lot of information in individuals' heads and experience. You have various Excel files, documents on your server. You go to a vendor's website. I mean, design intent can come from anywhere, right? It's just simply scattered about. So first of all, you need to capture that, and you need to sometimes create it, like actually document it, and put it on paper, so to speak, for the first time. So we're going to collect all the design intent. We're going to put it in one kind of bucket, so to speak, and come up with a way to institutionalize it, right? We can look at how that might be done in our demo. Okay, once all your design intent is in one place and is actionable, typically we need to create some sort of design process. Usually this comes in the format of a form or a user interface like we see here. Okay, we have buttons, drop-down menus, little sliders, images, such a form you can imagine to be dynamic. It would be responsive. It would have some sense of like flow and process to it, right? Steps 1 through 6. Each one of those steps has their sub-steps. And as the user, again, the user could be an engineer, a salesperson, an end customer. They are, in specifying the product, they are following a process of some sort, okay? And finally, when you have those first two items in place, your design intent and a process to execute the intent, then the automation is in a position to take over. DriveWorks installation in a very general form can be really anywhere. It could be on a cloud, a virtual machine. It could be on a data center server. It could be on a workstation, in the closet of your office. It could be in your company server. It can be installed just about anywhere, so long as it's SOLIDWORKS compatible, right? And so the automation is intended to just be a lights out affair, right? It just happens behind the scenes. No one actually watches it. And it just happens at a very fast speed, way faster than any human could do the work. And furthermore, it's not taking up anyone's time, right? It's not taking up your local laptop or workstation processing all these models and files. That is happening somewhere else. Okay, so we will look at some online demos, just so you're aware of a certain website as a resource. And with that, we will get into more of a deeper review of what a configurator can mean. Okay, again, the hit list is that it's a web-based system. It guides the user through the design process or even a selling process. And it's just a packaged web app that brings all those elements together. Okay, everything else, this is where things get a bit more interesting for most folks that come in to learn about design automation and then start to think about all that data, right? Because then again, that data is key. In the age of digital transformation and technology and companies' efforts to just work more efficiently and smartly, at the end of the day, what all that is about is handling data, right? So you can automate to your heart's content, but if your data is just a mess, then there isn't maybe much value at the end of the day. So how does DriveWorks end up going about that? So we like to think that if the cup is your business and the rocks are your individuals or your departments or different servers or business applications, they're just individual items that are in total create your business, right? When you put rocks in a cup, there's all sorts of gaps. Those gaps sort of represent the fragility or the incompleteness of the system, right? They're just barely touching each other. One rock is only touching the other rock and not the rock behind it, so on and so forth, right? And you can probably identify with those types of challenges in your day-to-day work life. What DriveWorks does is it becomes the water that wraps around everything and creates those holistic and comprehensive connections. So in doing so, we're controlling the who, what, why, when, and probably a how of how any given piece of activity can happen that you decide to put DriveWorks in control of. So at the end of the day, we're talking about building a platform, right? It's more than, DriveWorks can be much more than just a sort of standalone automation tool for a couple of engineers in the office. It can be a whole lot more. How do we do that? Again, getting back to data, we are integrating with virtually any kind of database, whether that be local or in the cloud, any type of text-based file format. DriveWorks is developing on an ongoing basis more and more direct plugins to popular business systems, whether it be ERP, SOLIDWORKS CAM, PDM Pro, e-commerce solutions, WordPress websites. I mean, the out-of-the-box integrations are growing all the time. Okay. Now, when you have all this data accessible to you, let's actually do some good with it. So that DriveWorks enables you to create forms, connect the data, control your processes, control the who, what, why, when, and how. The next thing that people want to do is bring all that together and create dashboards, right? Or just make that data accessible to you in the right way, in the moment, real time, so on and so forth, right? So one example of a dashboard, another example, this is actually, this image here is the dashboard that DriveWorks as a business, you know, the actual provider of the software has for themselves. So DriveWorks uses DriveWorks to run their DriveWorks as a business, right? Bit of an inception there. So they are a software company that uses DriveWorks to effectively manage their business. You know, they've got an accounting solution, a CRM solution, probably several databases, maybe a ticketing solution for tech support, things of that sort. And then DriveWorks is that piece that meets everything in the middle. Looks like a pretty busy dashboard in my opinion, but kind of gets the point across that this is all the data that they see fit to keep track of, and why not do that? Okay, so we'll take a quick detour to a website called DriveWorksLive.com. We'll do a quick browse of a few online demos, pointing out some various ways that one can approach having an online configurator. And so let's end it there now. Okay, again, the website address is DriveWorksLive.com. This is a public site. Anyone can go there. You can go there right now if you would like. So before we dive into any given demo, just a quick tour of what's on this page, because there is quite a bit. Up top, we have what it would be referred to as an embedded configurator. Okay, there are 3 different product types that you can play with. And keep in mind that this website is being hosted by DriveWorks in the UK. They're a British company. So what you're seeing for graphics, real-time response, that's all coming across the pond in real time. So pretty impressive. Okay, the second main section here is a whole load of demo configurator projects. Okay, all sorts of products, circumstances, and just approaches to configurator. Circle back there in a minute. Then down below is a bit of how-to, a little behind-the-scenes look at how DriveWorks works. So how do we create a workflow? Tell me more about integrations. This cool 3D technology that I see on a website, how does that work? So on and so forth. There's even a deep dive into automating SOLIDWORks. Okay, so great. If you're interested in learning more, this is a great resource to just kind of wrap your head around all that DriveWorks can do. Okay, now let's look at a few demos. So we're going to try the cover demo. And again, this is being served to us real time out of the UK. So it's going to take a moment to load, and we'll see why in a second. This configurator is going to feature, it's going to be very heavy on 3D content. Right? We've got a fully detailed, pretty appealing scene, right? To explain, to help the user. And let's imagine that the intended user of this demo is like a retail consumer, right? So that we want to see this thing in a very kind of a complementary lens, right? Now, what this features is real-time connectivity between what the user is going to choose and the imagery in the space. So we can play with colors, we can play with sizes, finishes, change out different types of door configurations. We can switch out hardware types, right? All real-time right in front of us. Because if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a 3D image must be worth, I guess, 1,000,000 words. So, you know, how much can you communicate to that end user with some sort of like dynamic and complete imagery of the product, right? If we were to follow this through, any kind of data that's programmatically known, we can start to process real time, like the bill of materials. That's available. I'm not sure you necessarily send that to your customer, but here it is. Here's a cut list for all the components. That's available real time. Quote document with a header and the content and the tax and the shipping and everything else. That can be ready real time, and even a cover letter, you know, based off of a template. So if you are to complete one of these demos on your own, you do need to put in some information. Okay, and you have just hereby submitted a request. And what we're seeing now is a real-time look into the DriveWorks server hosting this website. Okay, and this is a little, you know, automation dashboard of sorts that's going to give us a real-time update of what's happening right here, right now, or right there. And so these are all the documents that have already been created. We have a cut list as a PDF, bills and materials as a PDF. I can download them, I can view them right now if I wanted to, right? All that stuff was available instantly, okay? What's being processed right now is all the actual CAD content. So based on the design that I created, DriveWorks is creating item by item, assembly by assembly, drawing by drawing, I'll say custom, but a collection of content that did not exist until just now, okay? So we have production drawings, we have customer-facing drawings. That'll probably come at the end. But for each one of those manufacturing drawings that's required, those are already produced. Okay, so all said and done, there are going to be 18 SOLIDWORKS files, or well, model files, 8 drawings. Looks like we're just waiting for that assembly drawing, number 8. All said and done, DriveWorks will produce 55 pieces of content in that request. Okay. In a few minutes, I'll get an email with an attachment of probably that assembly drawing and the quote, right? So once that assembly drawing is complete, I'll check my email and we'll see what's there. Okay. Now, that 3D technology in a browser, that's not a requirement. You don't have to have that level of sophistication in a configurator. It can be much more, I don't know, utilitarian or just simple, let's say. And so that's what this HVAC demo kind of portrays. Well, actually, it portrays a few things. One is that it's a complicated product, right? This is a big HVAC system that would live on top of some Amazon warehouse or big factory somewhere. Okay, so you can imagine from an engineering perspective, there's, I don't know, tens of thousands of items in that BOM, right? And multiple sub-assemblies. And gee, how do we take this very complicated product and make it configurable? Like, how do we make that concept actionable? Okay. And so this demo is going to show a design process, right? Getting back to that second intellectual thought about design automation, you have to create a process, right? So this is how the demos process works. They're going to make us choose an entry module first. Seems like a good idea. And after the entry module, they're going to let us pick just about anything we want after that, right? So they have taken that big, complicated product as a whole and broken it down into modular, kind of consumable, bite-sized chunks, okay? And each one of these, we can then kind of zero in and focus on configuring it. Of course, you would think that a product that looks that sophisticated would have more things to tune up, and in real life they would. Just for the sake of a demo, this is just a basic offering. Anyways, we design our fan, then we might say we need a filter after the fan. Actually, we probably should have put the filter before the fan. I don't know. We can always change that. Add it, heat exchanger, tune it up, add it. So what we're doing is we're creating an HVAC system, a complicated, sophisticated system that really has not existed in this exact format before. So this configurator is in some ways conceived, right? They've, in a broad way, DriveWorks has said, okay, we're going to let you design a system. What you do within the confines of that system is up to you, and thus that'll be 100% bespoke and unconceived prior to this time. So if I want to add a second heat exchanger right in line with it, hey, it's up to me. I can do that. I'm following the rules that they have put in place for a configurator. Okay, and then finally, to end the process, I have to put an exit module added. Am I sure I'm done with my system? Yep, confirm. And here it is, a nice little roll-up of all these items that I've added, what their price, respective prices are, dimensions, I don't know, just various pieces of metadata that may seem important to someone in the HVAC world. Again, everything's programmatically known, so the BOM's available. Again, not necessarily sure that a customer would want to see that, but they might want to see the quote, which again, and we're viewing this right through the website, a cover letter, fully itemized list of components that are being purchased, their respective prices, all that good stuff ready to go. I'm not going to confirm the order because that's going to lead us back to that same dashboard page that we just saw. So we'll just carry on. All right, and so that's it. Plenty more versions of configurator demos to behold. They're all quite different, all do very different, unique things. If you're interested, I do recommend you circle back to this website, DriveWorksLive.com. Okay, now that's it. Moving on to the live demo. So let's take a peek at my machine here. So I'm running DriveWorks. I've got a laptop, okay, with SOLIDWORKS installed and the DriveWorks Pro software suite, which has various modules to it. But this one that we're looking at right now is what's called Administrator. Okay, this is where all the development work is done. We'll circle back to the back end of the development once we've had a chance to go through the demo and see what this configurator is all about. And again, sorry, this is not a demo. This is actually a real project that one of our customers is using today. Okay, so we have Administrator as one module. We have another module called Autopilot. This is the piece that manages the automation in a lights out fashion. Now, I happen to have it installed locally on my machine, but it would be typical to have this installed on the server. Furthermore, I've got SOLIDWORKS installed. And again, if this were a server-based installation, both SOLIDWORKS and Autopilot, what you're seeing here on screen would be not really like visible to me on a day-to-day basis. I wouldn't really want to be bothered by that over time. Okay, so I'm going to run this configurator through administrator. Now, it would be more typical to actually run this through a browser. I just don't have that set up for today. But when we actually instigate the configurator, so everything that you see in this white space in the middle, and then this kind of everything except inside of the actual application, this is what would be visible in a browser. Okay, so their configurator actually features its own login process, right? You can come in, you can create an account if you don't have one. If you have one, you can come in and do it. You can see what your password is if you need to. So mine's all kind of plugged in, ready to go. I'm logging in as an administrator of the configurator, so I can show you various aspects of how this works in real time. Furthermore, we've got various ways to manage my own account. As an administrator, I can manage other logins here. So we've got a few kind of dummy requests for folks that want to gain access to the system that I can go through an approval process. This is showing all of my approved users. Okay, so again, as administrator, I get to see certain things that other folks would not. I can see all of my existing quotes. Okay, I can click on any given quotes. Now, quick timeout. We're using DriveWorks in concert with what happens to be on my machine, a SQL database. Okay, so all this underlying data about the order and underlying data about customers, underlying data about the product and the specifications of those products, that all resides in SQL. So in turn, DriveWorks is at this point just a user interface to against that database, between the database and the user. Okay. So when I click on one quote versus another, all the data that's down here populating, that's getting queried real time, pulled from the database. So I don't have to necessarily open the that particular job to see what's inside of it. I can just get a quick preview of that specification in a sort of a text format. But if I did want to go into an existing quote, I can do that. All of a sudden, now I am here inside the actual crane configurator. This is a company that manufactures cranes, into the crane configurator portion of the implementation. Okay, so you can see all of the choices that were made about ratings and colors and material and whether or not there were hoists and so on and so forth. Right, so this is that particular quote number, let's see, 436. That's how it was left. Okay, so now I can either view it that way, or I can get out of there, cancel, or I can view it as a text in a text format. So let's actually create a new quote and follow this process through all the way. Okay, so I'm requesting a new quote. This company has two product lines associated with their configurator by now. They've been sort of segregated into different sort of developmental areas, as you can imagine. All things that would go into coordinating automation for a jib crane is very different than what might go into a gantry style crane. Okay, so those were segregated because they're very different products, yet they can live in the same overall system. Okay, so let's design a jib crane. We'll do an under brace version. Now you can see these are not like 3D spin it around type graphics. These are just rendering images saved as PNGs out of SOLIDWORks. But there's something meaningful to actually seeing an image of what you're trying to design rather than just relying on a description of sorts. So here we go. Now what we're going to notice is real-time sort of form responsiveness, right? So DriveWorks is saying, hey, you can't proceed with anything until you specify what kind of crane this is going to be. So we'll do freestanding. Okay, now I need to specify the safe working load. So I'm going to do 1,000. Whoop, if I put in 10,000, it's picking up on the fact that it's got to be under 2. Okay, so until I correct that, I don't get to move on to the next step. I know that a radius of 5 is good, a height of 4. Plain steel is the only material option for this type of crane, so it kind of forces that decision for me. I do get to select powder coated. I can put a custom color or pick out this sort of safety yellow. Okay, and once I sort of satisfy that selection, you'll notice that other form elements kind of present themselves to me. I will select a hoist. These are my two options. And I don't need a power feed system. Slew stop, no thanks. Okay. Furthermore, I could request that a step file be created of the assembly, or even a DWG. I think that would be of the SOLIDWORKS drawing file. I will not request those for now, just to save some time on the automation. But I am going to request the quote documents. I'm going to request an actual drawing, and that's it. One thing before we make the request here is that we do have a preview of pricing at the very bottom. Okay, so actually I have a preview of their intelligent file name system, right? So everything that I just spec'd equates to this type of a smart part number. This description was curated based on my entries. I've got a price, and then I've got a net value. That's because I believe in the CRM solution, there is an assigned discount to my account. I'm lucky, I think I get 10% off. So that's being reflected in the price as well. Okay, so let's actually see this thing work. So I'm going to make the request. DriveWorks picks up on the fact that the request has been made. And so it kind of pushes me out of the quotes. And we will now see. So this was quote 440. So we can see that just kicked off here. And DriveWorks recognizes that it's time to start producing some models. So now this will take a few minutes. And I'll kind of provide some commentary as we go. So there's various types of activity being done to this collection of SOLIDWORKS assemblies, sub-assemblies, part files, and drawings. For assembly, we can delete components, we can change component configurations, we can insert and mate new components on the fly. At a part level, we can interface with sketches by driving in drive dimensions. We can interface with part configurations. We can suppress unsuppressed features, and even drive advanced feature parameters. And so the way DriveWorks works is it will take all the things that it knows it needs to do to any given file and bulk process them. So if a drawing or if a file has 2 dimensions or 200 dimensions that need to be altered, DriveWorks will push those through all at once, do a single rebuild, and before you know it, the part has already been, that file's been closed, and you don't even get to see the actual final result. So as you're observing here, you might not actually witness a lot of the activity. That's because it's happening so quickly that the screen rendering isn't keeping up with the back-end use of the SOLIDWORKS API. Again, this automation that we're witnessing isn't really intended to be observed. It's intended to happen on that machine in the corner, on the server, turn the screen off, walk away, and just let it run. Okay. What we're going to see with this here assembly is that it is being created on the fly. The final jib crane top-level assembly in its kind of original format had nothing in it. And the 3 sub-assemblies that you just barely caught in the feature tree, those were added and mated on the fly directly based on my selections in the form. We're going to take a few moments to tune up the drawing. We're going to do a variety of things, including auto sizing, automatically setting the scale of every view, the positioning, the size of the view. We're going to delete annotations that are not required. We're going to update data tables, update the title block. Pretty much everything that you would think to do manually, we're just going to go ahead and do that automatically. If you look carefully, you'll see dimensions being positioned just so. So by the time this thing is done, I don't want any human hands touching this before it's sent off to whoever made the request. What's also interesting about this particular project is that we had to round trip some data, right? So if you think about the overall workflow, the user enters information into the form, DriveWorks pushes data and changes into the SOLIDWORKS file set. But this drawing, we'll see when it's done. Oh, it's all done. I should go check that out now. So quote 440. Let's look at our the PDF of our drawing. Get a better look at that. Here we go. I noticed some technical data like the weight of the arm, the weight of the column, the downward force as designated by P1, the overturning force. These are all smart values. These were calculated. So back to the overall workflow, user enters stuff into the form, DriveWorks pushes data into SOLIDWORks, but this data in the drawing is dependent on values that only exist in maybe sub-assemblies or components, right? So what we had to do is export mass properties from various components, bring them back into DriveWorks, have DriveWorks do some math, pump the result of that math into the final drawing. So this data here has been around a bit, right? It's gone through various systems, it's been processed, but what it is exactly representative of the product that has been spec'd out. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So not only do we have the PDF of the drawing, we have the drawing, we have all of those SOLIDWORks files that comprise the assembly. What you might notice here is that here's that smart part file naming convention. So every one of these SOLIDWORks parts has its own the job kind of part number, this E-00 that represents the fact that this quote was generated by DriveWorks and not maybe done manually, and then the actual name of the parts and the extension. So every one of these files was programmatically named and programmatically put into a specific folder. Okay, here are the mass properties that were exported just for reference. What else do we have? We have custom generated quotes on the company's header. So we have my kind of account data pulled from ultimately that single source of truth was that CRM database that got routed through DriveWorks, put into the template along with all this data from DriveWorks. You know, again, smart part numbers, pricing, here's my discount, so on and so forth. Right, so that is the quickest review of DriveWorks and specifically the CAD automation that DriveWorks is capable of. So hopefully that wasn't too overwhelming. Got a few more minutes left until kind of scheduled Q&A time. So like I said before, we're going to circle back into sort of how all this kind of came to be. Let's take a peek back into the back end. So we can log out of our system. Well, first I should just point out that, hey, maybe as a user, I got the email with an attachment of the drawing, my price. I'm like, that's not what I wanted to order. Actually, I pooched it. I meant to put a different radius, a different height, and I don't like that color. Well, I can come right back into my website, to my own login, make the change, make a new request, wait a few minutes, get an update with a revised version of that quote or that job. By the way, not 1 second of time was consumed by an in-house engineer, salesperson, customer experience person. This is a hands-free, lights-out process. I can go back and make more and more changes to my heart's content, not bother anyone along the way. Okay, logging out, back into the sort of back end of DriveWorks Administrator. So let's start with the form. What does a form look like? Well, it's a lot like using Access or PowerPoint or any other application where you could make an interface. So a lot of this is like drag and drop, right? You can set fonts, you can set sizes, right? You're using your mouse to do these things. Okay, we have a series of training options that is based on a list. That list for now happens to exist within DriveWorks, but of course this could be referring to an ERP, some external database. Maybe there's like an Excel file on your network that has like the single source of truth for all the product options. So this company chose to house a lot of that data inside DriveWorks, but of course it could live somewhere else. So everything that you experienced about the form from a user interface standpoint and all manner of control and validation and instituting a workflow and a process, that was all built out here in this kind of a workspace, okay? Now, we have various pages, right? So this page will look familiar, but we've got that page. That's but a couple buttons through their own dedicated space. We have this page, we have a home page, we have a, let's see, do we have a navigation page? I believe so. Yep, here's our header, which is populated by various types of buttons depending on the product and the particular workflow in place. So as you can tell, it's just all pretty modularly set up. And hey, if you can use your mouse and you have just some general ideas of what kind of a form would be appropriate for you, you're off to the races, ready to go. Okay. Now that's nice. So that's what makes the project look good and operate. But how does it? Where's all the actual logic? Where's the smarts to the system? Okay. Well, that's a bit of a rabbit hole to go through, but we have all sorts of logical artifacts such as constants. Constants are places where we just stuff any kind of piece of static data, right? And we can set these values, we can reset them. We have total control over how those are taken advantage of. And we have variables, and probably lots of them. So let's just say what defines the height of the crane. So let's go find a variable that has something to do with height maximum. This is the maximum height of the crane in meters. Well, here's our, what I would call our no code user interface, right? This is like moderate grade Excel formula type syntax, right? Where we've got various functions available to us. This one's a bit more sophisticated. We are filtering in a couple ways a data set. That data set could be, again, a table that lives in DriveWorks. It could be an external database, whatever it is. But in effect, we're slicing and dicing that data. Some variables might just be conducting some math. Take one thing, subtract another, subtract, and then we're going to divide, so on and so forth. There are countless engineering functions and math functions. So it's not just rudimentary items that you can bring together. It's a pretty powerful interface to create any kind of logic that you want. Furthermore, we have various just sort of basic tables. So this is their pricing table. Currently, it lives in DriveWorks. Once they update their pricing in their ERP system, we will transition all this over to ERP, and we'll just ping that system as needed to get updated pricing. There are things like calculation tables, which are very Excel-like, right? This is native to DriveWorks, so you can have one cell referring to another, so that you can tell that this net value is taking the discount and multiplying that, or somehow factoring that against the default price, and then we're summing that up at the bottom, so on and so forth. So that comes in pretty handy as well. Okay, on to the CAD front. Last thing I'll kind of dive into, and then we'll get into some Q&A. Here is the SOLIDWORks feature tree that would otherwise live in SOLIDWORks, right? So anything that DriveWorks has been made aware of, okay, we have access to build rules against those things in DriveWorks. So let's just take the column itself, just that base column. Let's just put our eyes on that in SOLIDWORks just to know what we're talking about. Okay, so we have this thing called a column. Okay, and if we look at our DriveWorks pane here, we can see that we captured what we call let's see, 3 dimensions: column size, thickness, the height, and then the center of the pivot. That sounds important. So collectively, there are 4 things about this particular model that DriveWorks knows about, and we shall control. How do we control? We do that with rules. So if we look at our that same part file here, we can see those same 4 rules that were captured, and we have the opportunity to create logic that will determine how DriveWorks will treat those dimensions when a request is made. Okay, so in this case, we're taking the square root well, a little Pythagorean theorem, a little bit more Pythagorean theorem, and then we're going to divide that by 2, and then we're going to find the ceiling to kind of round that off to a nice clean number. I don't really know what that does, but it looks like it's intelligent to me. And at its core, what it does is it comes up with a value. That value, 320, is what's going to be pumped into that SOLIDWORKS dimension. So here we've got 4 dimensions. We're also going to drive a color. We're going to institute that part naming convention, and we're going to specify. We're going to tell SOLIDWORKS where to put that file when it's done generating it. Okay, and so we're going to follow that same thought process for all these part files, all these assemblies, all these drawings. Right? If we add it all up, we have we can see at the very bottom here 772 rules that govern this one product. Okay, I would consider that to be moderately complex. We have some customers that are well into the thousands, 4,000 rules that that are required to properly automate the outcomes for a certain product line. Okay, so like I said, we're not going to get into the advanced methods of how we automate. This is just a quickie introduction, but I'll have to say that we have not encountered a modeling environment or product, a level of product complexity that DriveWorks has not been able to tackle. So we often get that initial thought like, oh, our company, we're too challenging, our product is too difficult, there's no way you can automate that. Well, I would challenge that assertion and just give yourself a little time to investigate DriveWorks and see if there might be a different way to look at that.